Hello, friends and neighbors. This is DJ's Album Share, and I'm your host, DJ Roller. And we have made it to episode 10. This week I am joined by my good friend, Sean Booty. Sean is a singer-songwriter from here in Richmond, Virginia, and we've played together at open mics. And I've always enjoyed his conversation and hanging out with Sean, so this was a really easy podcast to do. The albums we're discussing are Towne Van Zandt, For the Sake of the Song, and John Hartford, Earthwords and Music. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcast, you can rate and review. Leave us a 5-star rating, please. You can also follow along on Spotify. And if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can subscribe to the YouTube channel and also leave a comment on the YouTube video and tell us that you like it. So appreciate the support, guys. And don't forget to go like our Instagram page and tell your friends. Thanks. Enjoy the show. Hey guys, before we start the show, just wanted to tell you about my sponsor, Carolina Sea Salts. They specialize in smoked sea salts, and I have the variety pack actually on the way to my house right now. I'm super excited. I've had the cherry and the smoked cherry and the smoked habanero. So I'm super excited to try these salts out, spicing up my flavors of my meats that I've been cooking. I've used the cherry on some steak. I think I used the habanero on the latest concoction was on some chicken. So I'm super excited, man. It's just an easy way to make all your cooking more flavorful. So go get you guys some now. You can go find Carolina Sea Salts on Etsy, and stuff's pretty reasonably priced. Get yourself some sea salt. Try it out. Thanks, guys. Enjoy the show. What's up, Sean? How are you, sir?
I'm doing good.
Thanks for coming on, brother. I appreciate you doing this. It's going to be a lot of fun. I enjoyed the albums we got to talk about today. I'm going to start with the Towne Van Zandt album, and For the Sake of the Song, and a lot of people know Townes as being like a prolific songwriter, as a very he writes a lot of music, but damn, man, he's dark. He's dark.
Yeah. He's hard to listen to sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, I like his stuff. Like I've all Waiting Around to Die, that's like one of his like biggest songs, Classic song. And I've always loved his stuff, but like this album's dark, dude. Yeah. And he has a lot of like the stuff that I find with his writing is that he's so descriptive and poetic at the same time. It's very strange. And I guess you gotta take into account the time period then this stuff was released. For the Sake of the Song is 1968. I'm pretty sure the other one's 1968 too. So so it's like you're talking about like a time period of music that's very unique in songwriter terms.
For sure.
You know what I mean? I feel like everybody back in those days was either, chasing Dylan or trying to reinvent the wheel or trying to do their own thing, right? And some guys, not saying that they were in competition or anything, but just like, you're trying to be authentic, right? And you have to be your own style of songwriter back then. Especially, I feel like people listen to music a lot different back then than they do now. So
one thing I always think about is these guys who were making music in the late 60s did not grow up listening to the music it's all new, right?
Right. Yeah, they have no...
They grew up listening to like... The latest would be like Buddy Holly,
Right? Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I've said this before. I've said this before on the podcast. It's amazing for that time period of musicians because they're not. And I think this is what you were touching on. They're not getting influenced by older generations. They're getting influenced by their peers.
Yeah.
So they're having to go out and meet other songwriters of the time. I've seen videos where like Townes plays with I think was it Jackson Brown in that video or something he plays with. It's like there's been documented where like songwriters get together back in that era and they like trade.
Kick it for sure.
And because that was the only way to learn to get better at your craft. And it's very I'm jealous and I'm not jealous. I'm jealous in that because I like that type of camaraderie when it comes to musicianship and writing songs and stuff. And I think that's what's always drawn me to having these conversations about albums and stuff is like I usually get into like a circle with a group of people and like, well, what were you influenced by to do that? And then all of a sudden they give me some album to listen to that I haven't listened to in depth or haven't listened to in a while or, there's something to it.
And I still haven't, have you ever touched or seen a Towne Van Zandt album?
No.
Me neither.
Not
when I
physically.
first found out about him, I'm like, oh God, I got to get all this guy's stuff. And then it's like,
that's
nowhere.
That's the coolest thing.
I had to like
Well, you got to think about it, right? Like, so I met a guy here recently who had a bunch of bluegrass albums on vinyl that were, in my opinion, pretty rare. He had a John Hartford album as well. And he talked to me about it. He was a collector, and he had some, long story short, he had some good luck. Let's just call it that, right?
Yeah,
and he had gotten in around the albums and got them for cheap. But he said, man, you got to understand these albums weren't widely distributed.
Right.
You know, like they really didn't do that well.
To
be like, not to be an asshole, but like, they didn't do that well in the grand scheme of selling records. So the amount that's out there that's in decent shape is like very few, which is something that we are very privileged to be able to listen to.
For
digitally.
sure. Like I can, just
we can pull this stuff up. We can go back and listen to it. I think that's part of the. I feel like right now we might, if enough people get on the bandwagon with this idea, not saying I'm the only one that has this original thought, but if enough of us get on this idea of wanting the old time songwriter albums to come out, which you have some contemporary artists that are doing a lot of the, they're not doing it as in depth as these older guys are doing, but a lot of them are going back and kind of doing more of the old style recordings where the album is kind of a whole piece of art and stuff.
Kind of, for sure.
And so hopefully maybe the consumer drives that, I'm just being optimistic.
Yeah.
But
I guess too back then it was such a big deal, like very literally, like physically you had so many people on an album, just the pure mechanics of it. That you couldn't work on an album for 2 years. Like I know people who are like, oh yeah, I'm still,
or more.
So it, they change as opposed to like when Townes or John Hartford had to record these albums. It was like, this is who they were in a week or two. It's like
also
too,
they had to like do this stuff in like a take at one time. I'm pretty sure, right? Like they had to record. All right, ready, go. I think that was the way it used to go. All right, tapes rolling, ready, go.
Wasn't like they were recording and figuring it out at the same time, which is, I think, the way I at least feel. I think a lot of people do it now.
Yeah, man. I wanted to touch on a couple of songs that I liked. The Tecumseh Valley.
Oh yeah.
That's a sad story of like the American dream to me. Like,
for sure, yeah.
It's just the way he talks about stuff is so descriptive. It's so. I mean, I don't even know if I have the right words to describe how poetic he is. Even like it's amazing.
He said that's the only folk song he ever tried to write. Like he was like, really? I'm gonna write a folk song, like classic folk themes.
Interesting.
And he wrote it, I think, on a banjo.
Interesting.
But he's not really a banjo. I mean, I guess
common thread between albums.
he knew enough. I guess he knew enough chords. I think it's C, F, and G or something.
So G's open. So you got one already given to you.
True.
All you got to do is learn two chords.
Yeah, 2 chords.
That sounds a lot easier.
It's such a good. I mean, that's like one of his iconic songs. So is Waiting Around to Die and I'll Be There in the Morning.
Waiting Around to Die is another one I picked. Waiting Around to Die, like he does so well to me personally of getting that eerie feeling from the song that he's conveying with the words. Like a lot of times that's probably might be the hardest thing to do is to write a song that has emotion behind it and be able to get the music to match whatever emotion that you're trying to convey, right? And also, too, that the words, it's almost this justification of his moral conflicts. He's like, oh, well, it's better than just waiting around to die.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, oh, we're going to do this, that, or that, but it's better than just waiting around to die. And then at the end, he's like, I found a new friend named Codeine, and we're just going to wait around to die.
Right.
Like, that whole, like, it's just a justification of his, like, immoral acts almost, where he's like, it's better than just waiting around to die. You know?
I guess in a funny way you could, because his first album, and he says, and he was like known to tell tall tales. He says that's the first song he wrote.
Interesting.
And talk about justification for his following lifestyle.
Yeah,
it's
right.
better than waiting around to die.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing too is like, there's some thought process to that too. Is like a lot of the motivation that we find is from moral, immoral acts almost. You know what I mean? So I do find that these really these really good songwriters who convey an emotion like that very well. It's amazing to me because I don't think I possess the skill. You know what I mean? I think I can maybe come along and write a song or two here or there, but to really convey that emotion where you're like, I'm probably doing shit I shouldn't be doing, but it's better than just waiting around to die. You know what I mean? That's and to do it in so many words, it's kind of a deep well, he was deep with all of his stuff. I feel like he was a very deep songwriter.
But it doesn't feel like he's outright telling you that either.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to kind of read into that. Like,
what's the in the John Hartford? He's trying to convey earth feelings without earthwords.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that was a heavy mind.
Like, oh my god!
Yes. Yeah.
Trying to convey.
We'll get to that too. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the one of the other tracks I liked on it, "I'll Be There in the Morning."
Oh yeah, for sure,
dude. That was a beautiful song. It's like, to me, it's about like settling down. You know, like in the my favorite line, "But your softest whisper louder than the highway's call to me." It's like, you know, he knows what he is, but you know, and just to not to deviate from the tracks or anything, but what brought you to this album? That's a good question.
Oh gosh, I came to it later. I was probably 25 or something. So we're going back 10 years, and but someone was just like, "Hey," as a guy who's really into Dylan, right? And I'm into Dylan, and he was like, "You ever listen to Townes?" I said, "No," and he gave me like a record, like a bootleg version of, I think it's Live at the Oak Quarter or something. You ever heard that? That's just like him and a guitar.
Nah, I need to check
live
that out.
2-disc set. And that's kind of like, to me, like iconic Townes. It's just him and a guitar, right?
Right. Yeah.
Which is what makes this album so weird, because it's got like harpsichords.
Well, it's 60s music, dude.
Yeah.
You know, that's the time period. You got to take that into
crazy.
account. Like, there's some moments where I was listening to it and I was like, man, this is very 60s.
It sounds like a movie soundtrack or something.
Yeah. It's like,
even Waiting Around to Die on this, it sounds like a Western.
Yeah, it has a Western feel to it.
Spaghetti Western.
And that's maybe that was the eerie feeling I was talking about. Where it's like, oh, this feels like some shit's going on right now, you know?
Like a movie.
Yeah. And, you know, I wanted to ask you that because I feel like an underlying theme may occur from all of the answers from all the guests I've had on it. It has been kind of so far as just like, yes, a friend of mine turned me onto this album, which is so fucking cool, man. Because I said this on the last episode, I'll say it again. Like, we need each other as musicians. We need to, like, there's no way I would sit down and listen to some of this stuff and like take notes on it had I been for someone else to show it to me. Not saying that I don't appreciate Townes. It's just that, like, I had this album wasn't on my radar. You know what I mean? So you need sometimes that person, that other musician, your peer, to be like, hey, check this out. So I definitely, that's kind of been one of my questions I've been asking people is like, you know, what turned you onto this album? Who was what brought you to it? And the next thing too, like, any type of, what's your I'd say, what's your best connection or most connection to this album? What songs connect you to this album the most?
Oh God, I don't even know. I don't know.
All right, well, what's some of the songs you picked up?
Undescribable. I guess, you know, For the Sake of the Song's great, and For the Sake of the Song is like, and Townes has a lot of songs like this. And it's to me, it's a rare thing where I feel like the lyrics could stand on their own, separate from the music.
Yeah, I
not
felt
a lot of people hit that mark, you know.
Oh, absolutely. I feel that way too. I mean, he has the line, maybe she just has to sing for the sake of the song, and who do I think I am to decide who am I to think that I'm to decide that she's wrong? Damn, sorry. But
I, you know, another one I love is Quicksilver Daydreams of Maria.
Oh yeah, it's
like crazy. It's got some killer lines.
It does have some killer lines,
and it's
very poetic.
I call it the Townes turn because it's a beautiful song about just basically how beautiful this woman Maria is. And then at the end, he somehow turns that shit sad. Like, you know, you're like, come on, dude. Like, you could have just left off like the last two verses. You know, it could have just been this happy, beautiful song.
Yeah.
But then he's talk about, like, you know, a lonely child, you know, longingly looks for a place to belong.
Yeah.
You know, he's looking for the innocence.
Hey, man, that is also, sad, you know, it's also the plight of many songwriters is that the reason they're writing about stuff isn't because they're necessarily happy about it. You know what I mean? Right. Or even some of the better songs I've written throughout my life, I won't say they're good at all, but the ones that I've written have been because I'm upset or because something's happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whether it be anger or like sadness. Like, I think the better songs I have written are from actual emotion, real emotion.
Absolutely.
So there's something to be said about that. You know, and hell, who am I to judge about anybody's ability to write songs? But at the same time, it's like, damn, dude, you always go sad.
Yeah. For whatever reason, sadness is like my motivator.
Yeah.
Some people, I've met people that are motivated by happiness.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, they exist too.
Usually I just enjoy that. I have no trouble just kicking back and enjoying being happy.
Right.
When I'm sad. Well, and two, when I'm sad, I'm normally, alone. And that helps. I mean, God knows, playing music or whatever. Just like, it's so much easier to do when you're alone.
Right. Well, another one of the songs, I love talking blues songs. So Talking Karate Blues.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking hilarious, dude. And the ridiculousness that is Townes, you know what I mean? And both of these songwriters and the time period that they're writing in, the ridiculousness of both of them, that was a connection I wanted to make right there, because he ends up talking about the dude ripping his arm off. Like,
yeah.
Nobody's going to punch a guy with one arm. It's like, what?
Well, apparently Townes, like, when he started, right, I guess mid 60s in like Houston, he was like playing like blues music, like Lightning Hopkins stuff, and writing these like ridiculous talking blues songs.
Interesting.
And I think it might have been his dad or something, said, "Hey, you gotta just play your own stuff. Like, don't waste your time playing other people's music." I can't remember who, but then he started, I guess, getting more serious.
Interesting.
Well, and like he wrote, and this is like from an interview, I guess, with his ex-wife. Well, he had like gotten married, and his parents set him up, the two of them up in this apartment, and he made like took a closet and would like, had nothing in it. He would go in the closet and play guitar. And that's where he wrote Waiting Around to Die as a newlywed in an apartment that his parents are paying for. His parents are like bankrolling him, and he's like writing Waiting Around to Die at 20, and you're thinking, my God.
Well, yeah, maybe he should not.
My God, maybe this is not
a good place to write songs.
Right lifestyle form or something.
Well, also too, there's a thought process to having to get in character, right? Or get in the thought process. Now, probably one of the ones I didn't expect to take me to a cool place was the All of Your Servants. I like that song quite a bit, man. The karma of the song, right? And then the heavy alliteration, like a heavy alliteration, which I think is one of the more important like tools of songwriting,
right.
Because like alliteration is a pretty easy tool to understand,
for sure.
But yet, like it's a pretty powerful.
It's hard to do, and this is one thing Townes does well, where it never feels like he writes like real, like, I guess kind of lyric heavy, kind of dramatic stuff, but it never feels out of character. I don't know what that is. John Prine does the same thing.
He does, yeah.
He'll hit you with, but it sounds like he's just talking to you,
right?
It sounds like
the alliteration.
Like alliteration, a lot of times you hear it and you're like, all right, they're really trying hard with that.
Oh, true, exactly. There's skill to it, right? It's almost like a comedian knowing how to talk to somebody versus like an open
set
micer.
Up a joke and you think he's just.
Yeah, so the alliteration, your castle is dingy, dark, and dismal, and there's cracks in your crystal. I thought that was cool because he rhymed them, man. Those were two rhyming lines that he used alliteration in both lines. I was like, my brain was like blown. I was like, that's fucking cool, dude.
Well, Townes is blowing my mind too. He'll have these like insanely complex rhyming patterns that I don't come across for like years. And I'll be listening like weird internal rhymes.
I have had to read what helped me the most was reading the lyrics along with him singing.
Sure, yeah.
And it's probably how I'm going to listen to most music going forward that I want to like study like this.
Yeah.
Especially if I get really into an artist, which happens quite a bit. Because like you don't, some of the nuances of some of the things they're trying to say, they make something past tense instead of present tense. It means a lot, right? Sure. Like, so just knowing those little nuances sometimes means quite a bit of difference in meaning when it comes to what the song actually means or what the phrase means or whatever. And it's something that really, man, like I did enjoy this album, but yeah, it was dark. Right. It was fucking dark, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of why, I picked it too, because I think like a lot more people know about Townes than used to, but at the same time, a lot of his stuff gets lost in, I guess, what he recorded in a studio versus like a lot of people have heard like live performances of him because they're so moving and it's just him and a guitar. But like a lot of the stuff, a lot of these songs, like I've never heard like him play live.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
I wonder.
Yeah. All Your Young Servants, I've never heard that live.
Yeah, it's great. I mean,
Quicksilver, Daydreams of Maria, I've never heard. There's probably, who knows?
Yeah,
but
who
I've
has no
to,
idea?
A lot, and
one does wonder though, right? My curiosity spikes is like, man, how do you write in such a way and then just go, I'm not playing it again.
Right.
That's a lot of effort to just be like, I'm done with that.
Yeah. Well, shoot, you got to think, like, a lot of people would just be like, oh my God, this is heavy.
Like
people in a bar just like, oh my God.
You got to think about, like,
chill, dude. Like, play like a funny blues song, okay, dude? We're trying to have a good time, man. It's like, here's another one. It's like the saddest song you've ever heard. It's like, shut up, no more Tecumseh Valley. It's the saddest song I've ever heard, Towne.
Oh my God.
It's Saturday night. I'm trying to have fun, dude. Like,
I paid to get into this bar.
Chill, dude.
Oh my God.
So, I mean, I guess that, and I guess that's part two of like being an artist. Like,
it is.
What sells, what people enjoy versus like,
well, you got to find a happy medium.
You
got to find a happy medium. I feel like there's no sake of doing anything as an artist if you don't like it.
For sure.
Like, fuck off. Don't do it unless you like it, dude. Seriously, 100%. Like, there's a reason why I play the music that I play and shit. It's not because I think anybody will ever want to listen to it.
Right.
I think that I enjoy playing it and I think it's interesting.
Right.
But there is some thought process to being an entertainer, right?
Oh,
like, when you're on stage, you are there as entertainment. Now, what the trick, I think, is being both. That's when you actually start making money or you actually start getting recognition. Or the only recognition I've ever gotten in my life has been because I could at some level pull off both. Not great. I'm not saying I'm a professional, but at the same point, the success I've had is because I can pull off both.
Right,
because one, I enjoyed it on the face value. The crowd knows I enjoy it, and also two, I entertain people, and I know I'm there to entertain people, and I know that I've got to, mix up the tempos. I've got to do a lot of different stuff.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you can't still have fun with it.
Yeah. For
I think that a lot of true songwriters get in their heads about like only wanting to play their own music, and that's cool, man, because if I was good at it, I'd only want to play my own music because I understand what you're doing. It's like sharpening a tool, right? You're like, the more I play my songs, the better they're going to get. The more comfortable I'm going to get with them. I got to play my own stuff.
Right.
But there's something to be said about having a couple of covers to be able to mix in to catch someone's attention.
Right.
So what I've always done in a live setting is use that cover as an attention grabber. And then hit them with one of your best songs.
Right.
Because they're going to pay attention. The crowd is going to pay attention for max 30 seconds to a song they don't know. I mean, that's tops, man. You got 30 to 35 seconds when you start a song they don't know to get them. So that's off dead air. So if I play a cover, I might get 10 extra seconds of attention time because they're like, oh, they just played that cover. What are they playing now?
Well, and they know they know where it's going, so they can follow it and they can see like, oh, how's this guy? They
kind of trust you at that point a little bit, right? They're like, oh, he knows this music. He's not just some guy who just learned how to play guitar or something.
Right.
So people, I think that your general crowd that you're going to run into as an open micer trying to gig, I'm not talking about a professional person.
Right.
As an open micer trying to gig, which I think most people are, I don't think there's going to be, we're all actually open micers trying to gig right now. There's no professional musicians. I think that going forward, my advice to everybody would just be do both.
That's been one funny thing about the pandemic is seeing all these like crazy good professional musicians reduced to like sharing Zoom videos of them playing at home. It's like,
welcome to my life. It ain't no fun.
Well, too, I think a lot of songwriters. I mean, I guess some of them spend so much time in like songcrafting that they just don't spend the time with covers. It's really a function of time. And
there's also too something to learning. Like when I fought for years to actually learn other musicians' pieces of music. I'll just hear it and I'll learn it by ear.
Right.
Once you learn that piece of music by tablature or by sheet music or whatever, you actually learn the person who wrote it. You learn something from the person who wrote it.
Right,
and I think the same can be said from songwriters. When you learn a cover from one of your favorite songs, so here's the thing, you don't have to play top 40 if you do a cover. You can do a cover that you like if you just think other people are going to recognize.
Yeah.
And so And also, too, what happens is you learn structure, you learn timing, you learn how that person did certain things.
Right.
And so I think that that's been, and I think that thought process, too, has been what music has been about since the beginning of time.
Right.
It's like, I learned how to play this song. I'm going to teach it to you because at some point I'm not going to be here anymore.
Right.
So I hope somebody plays my song, you know?
Yeah.
So I think that that's kind of been the theme, but it's been lost a little bit over time.
Right,
And man, I really think that going forward, like when everything comes back and the road opens up and every touring musician hits the road at the same time again.
They're all selling out because everyone's starved for that.
Guess what? The little guys are going to have to go back to the purity of love and what they do. You know what I mean? Rather than thinking that, we're going to get handed anything.
Yeah.
People who aren't national touring artists are going to have to just do it because they love it. It ain't going to be, it's not going to be any money in it for at least a few years, I'd say.
Well, and the neat thing I think about now versus 68 when these albums were cut is that you can record a very good album. I mean, granted, you're not going to have the same backing musicians as a studio, but anyways, you can record it and get it out to people,
exactly,
very easily, very easily, very cheaply.
Yeah, platforms
and like
out
they
there.
didn't have that, and like they couldn't do that.
And it comes back to saying,
well, and then the machine too controlled what people heard.
That's what I was about to say. Like, how much influence did they?
There, how many cats were out there in '68 that were like phenomenal, but just not the right person saw them at a bar
or they
on
were,
a night,
or somebody told them that they had to be this person, they had to wear a cowboy hat, or they had to wear this, or they had, they had to be this person, they had to fit in this box.
Well, it's like the whole Willie Nelson deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Outlaw country. And
I mean, I'm a huge fan of that whole movement and everything. Well, let's spin to something a little similar to that, which was the Newgrass Revival. Which I think really,
and that's something I don't know a lot about.
Which I think really John Hartford is the one who started all that. To me, yes. If you listen to, he is the first. I'm talking about the first recordings of progressive bluegrass are John Hartford, and including on this album, I'd say with the banjo stuff the banjo work that he does, the stuff that he does that's folk music. But it's not.
It's not. It's
but
kind
it
of
is,
rock and roll. It's
but it's
kind
blues.
Of folk. It's blues. It's all of it.
That's what I would say is the catalyst to what progressive bluegrass is. John Hartford, to me, is the godfather of all of it.
Okay,
like
because
his
I guess
songwriting,
it was the late '50s when Pete Seeger and that whole every kid bought a banjo.
Yeah,
but they were playing
traditional stuff. Music, when you're talking about like what spawned into like Sam Bush and the Newgrass Revival and them doing the stuff in the 70s and 80s, and then was turned into like what we call progressive bluegrass today.
Right.
To me, it comes from three facets: the songwriting, which is John Hartford, the composition, which is John Hartford, and really just the silliness of it, which is John Hart. Like he's the innovator to me personally of all of those things when it comes to progressive bluegrass, because he's some of the first recordings of somebody just doing like he has this Roger Miller-esque style of singing and writing songs, and starting with the first song, which I've listened to on repeat since I got it. It's just like, and the old one went, and the new one goes, and the old one went, and I don't even know how to do that noise he does with his mouth. But it's just, he was trying and doing things at that time nobody else in that genre was doing, especially with the banjo, and especially, he had been recognized by the Grand Ole Opry. There's a lot of shit that he got recognized by as time went on. Right. And you're like looking at the situation as me. I don't think he got recognized by the Grand Ole Opry till a little bit later, but still, you look at the situation, you're going like, man, he was really progressive for that genre of music,
for sure,
for folk music. You got like
Absolutely.
you got, like you said, you've got rock, you got blues, you got a lot of things going on in this album. Mind you, it was recorded in '68, so there is some '60s stuff in there as well.
Right.
But to me, really, he is one of the innovators of the progressive bluegrass movement.
He had some,
if not the Godfather.
And I need to pull up the album listing, but some of the songs really had a groove in there that isn't and I'm not like a huge, I don't know a lot of bluegrass, but there were some like serious grooves in there, kind of like almost bluesy kind of grooves,
Right.
you know?
Well, he was a multi-instrumentalist.
Yeah, that's
he was a
crazy.
fiddle player, he was a banjo player, he was a guitar player.
So how did did he start off as like, was he just straight bluegrass?
I don't know much of his early history
stuff?
because I don't know how much of it is documented. I'm going to have to go back and do more investigating because I was just really focused on this album because of how much I love this album right now.
Yeah, I'm getting in the weeds, man. But that's
No.
like,
I want to know too. But what I would from what I have from the small amount of stuff I've looked up is that he was traditional up until a certain point, and then he was a songwriter as well. So those two worlds kind of clashed. Like he kind of had two things going on. He was playing banjo and fiddle, and then he was writing songs, and then those two worlds kind of clashed around the time that he started releasing music.
Fantastically arranged album too,
and
crazy,
incredible.
I mean, into like
from one thing to the next, dude. The next song. So the
good.
first one is the good old electric washing machine. Might we say the name of the album?
Yeah. We're
jumping right in, dude. The name of the album is gonna be the Earthwords of Music. Yeah, Earthwords of Music. And the second track has a damn kazoo solo on it. Like,
yeah.
So kind of like to me, like he was just trying everything, man. He was trying anything. Hey, let's put that on the track. Like, it takes a guy like him, man. It really does take a guy like him to let people like me know what's available out there in the world when you're listening to music. You get so caught up in hearing the same kind of old thing, just thrown in the washer machine, wash and come back out, and it's the same thing, right? It's just rinse and repeat, throw it back out.
Yeah.
He is so different on this entire album. To me, man, I really and truly like. He is a very big inspiration on me personally. I wish I could write like he does, but like as far as like musicianship as well, like he plays a lot of like jazz stuff on a lot of these albums. I mean, a lot of these songs, even the third track, "The Daytime of Life," where it's like a poem.
Yeah, and the thing is, out of all the songs, excluding "Gentle on My Mind," just because I've heard that a million times.
Right.
I mean, but. So listening to this album after you told me about it, I never had listened to it before, and I only knew him from "Gentle on My Mind." "Daytime of My Life" is the one that it's like the best, like so good. But that's the one the melody sticks with me.
Well, Daytime of Life.
Yeah. I don't know what it's kind of a loping kind of melody.
And that one also takes a dark turn too, which is a kind of a thing I wanted to bring in with the Townes version, where he does the Townes spin right there at the end, where he's like dying. Yeah, and it's like, God, this was cool at first,
and it's midnight. It's like, okay, he's dead.
Okay, you died.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. Yeah, and I think that that was some similarities I wanted to tie to with the two guys. Is that like he has his dark side as well? You know what I mean?
There are no fools in heaven.
I know, dude.
It's like a song just literally describing hell.
Thank you.
Literally
That's exactly what I had
describing
written
hell
down.
for 5 minutes. And it's like makes me uncomfortable.
It does.
It makes me like physically uncomfortable.
The music is so perfect.
Oh my God, it's so good.
Like he was like, how can we make people feel the most uncomfortable?
Right.
While I give descriptions of hell, and they're like, this is the chord progression.
Oh, and he's doing all these like weird sharp things. And like it's building up.
It's building. But then once it clicks with the heaven part, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
And it's the thought I had earlier when I was listening to it. There's never been a better gospel on this planet.
Right.
There's never been a better gospel music on this planet than that, because it's like, if you really wanted to convince somebody to act right and go to heaven, listen to this shit.
It keeps getting worse. And how he's able, the lyrics get worse, and then like it just makes me physically.
What's so funny,
but not a lot of people do that, and I like that in music and in songwriting, where it makes me uncomfortable, and that's
and it's part of it. You have to make someone uncomfortable to give them the relief as well, because that's the heaven part. There's no fools in heaven. It resolves. Once something resolves musically, like we can feel it almost. It's a nice feeling. And I think that, man, to me, he every time I listen to him, I find something else different. And that song, I didn't at first. I listened to it and I was like, is he really describing hell? Like, and it took me twice listening to it where I was
Yeah.
like, he's definitely like, these are like the Dante's Inferno or
Yeah,
whatever.
for
This is like the
sure.
9 layers of hell, dude. He's
Yeah.
explaining and he's resolving each verse by going, well, you know what? There's none of that in heaven.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, I'll get my shit
Yeah,
together,
yeah.
dude. Like, it's almost like the brimstone and fire preacher. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? They're like
yeah.
telling you all the things that's going to happen when you go to hell, but you don't have to.
You don't have to.
And I find that, man,
Yeah.
he does that constantly. And before we move on, we talked about this beforehand, and we both wanted to repeat it. The next song, Earthwords, man, what a poem!
Oh my God.
What a
Yeah,
poem!
yeah.
And like you said, well, go ahead. With the gentle on my mind thing.
Oh yeah, they should never be separated. Earthwords is like, you know, it's a poem, it's a prayer. I don't know. It's just everything, you know. A love letter, maybe.
A love letter,
Who
yeah,
knows?
absolutely,
It's just all those things. And the way that goes into Gentle on My Mind.
It's almost like a declaration of like, this is a very serious song you're about to listen to.
Yeah.
And if you like it, you should like it because you like it, not because you're expecting to like it.
Right.
You know what I mean? Which
Yeah,
is the reason why I agree with you. It definitely should be played because to me, Gentle on My Mind may be one of the greatest songs that's ever written.
Yeah. You know, I always thought it was good. And
Yeah.
then I've listened to it, you know, I've listened to this album a bunch since you know, I knew I was coming on here. And yeah, it's just like, it's the perfect song. It's just like the perfect.
To me.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, we all have opinions. Some of them are great. But I
so
think
good.
that, to me personally, Gentle on My Mind may be one of the greatest songs ever written. So to have him, I don't know if he meant to do this or not, but almost to me have the foresight to be like, this is a great song.
Yeah.
I got to put something ahead of this song for make people take how serious. That's Gentle on My Mind's a very serious song.
Yeah.
And although the melody's nice and although all the other aspects of the song are beautiful, he was like, look, I want you to like this because you like it, not because you're expecting to like it almost. Where it was like, that's a very admirable almost like thing to do where he had the foresight to be like, this needs to go before Gentle on My Mind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and then it's like the first first couple I was pretty lighthearted.
Mm-hmm.
He has that. I like that love song in 2/4 time.
Gentle on My Mind?
No, love song.
Oh,
in
love
2/4.
song 2/4. Oh, yeah.
But I mean, the
yes,
first.
yeah.
It's like there's a good line. What? Anyways, I hope. Anyways, I can't even think of it, but it's kind of clever. But anyways,
I have some lines written down from
the
that.
first. Yeah, what's that good line? What's that?
The chorus, but if you hate my guts half as much as I love you, then I'd rather have everyone else in the world hate me than for you to. Like, he hangs you on to the last 2 words right there.
And I think they hit like a saw or some.
That's to me the genius of his songwriting, right?
Yeah,
like he makes you hang on for dear life right there to the end. And
But what I was getting at is the first little part of the album is like pretty lighthearted and good and. But then it hits that hell song. There are no fools in heaven, and then he goes right into Earthwords, and then Gentle on My Mind. It's like the perfect resolution. You know, it's just like
here
boom,
we go.
Boom, boom.
You should probably get saved because we're about to get serious.
Yeah.
You know, Gentle on My Mind. I have to just harp on this, man.
Oh, for sure.
The last verse. Through cups hands round a tin can, I pretend to hold you to my breast and find that you're waving from the back roads by the rivers of my memory, ever smiling, ever gentle on my mind. If I could ever write anything like that, I think I'd quit.
Well, in the rhyming scheme, I'd have to write it. I'd have to see it written or write it down.
Yeah.
To even figure out what's
going on.
It's kind of complicated.
I mean, kind of happened. When I was reading along with it. That's kind of the realization I had was like, this is way more complex. Even me as appreciating the song as much as I have, it's way more complex than I ever thought it was. And you know, he has these real experiences throughout the song that he's trying to explain why she's gentle, why she is so on his mind all the time. One of them is the sleeping bag. The sleeping bag I had leave rolled up behind your couch. That's such a nobody would try to rhyme couch or try to have couch at the end of a verse or anything like that. And he's just like, no, this is what happened. This is exactly what happened.
Right.
You know, or I don't know if that is or isn't, but to me, it makes me feel like it is exactly what happened. And the other verse is some other woman crying to her mother because I up and left.
Yeah,
like that stuff where it's just like Yeah, that probably happened.
Right.
And he's admitting to her, it's like, yeah, I'm on the road. I'm not being faithful, but you're the one that I'm thinking about constantly. That I keep coming back to when I'm sitting here by myself, wishing I had you. Yeah. That's so deep, man. Yeah. It's so hardcore. Well,
and then for one thing, too, that I think a lot of good songwriters do is they're able to put those very specific things in a song, like the sleeping bag, the girl crying, but then, they don't have to be super specific for the rest of the song. It's just enough to relate, oh yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the rest of it is him talking about where she's at in his head.
Right.
Behind
Absolutely.
the streams and the rivers and the creeks and the mountains.
Yeah.
But it's all about that real moment that happened and him explaining about where she's at in his memory. That really, man, there's some other albums that he writes like this. To be honest with you, Steam Powered Airplane is probably my favorite John Hartford album. I would suggest you check that out as well. But it's funny that this one is iconic throughout. Everyone who's ever recorded this song has been a fucking hit.
Yeah.
Like not, every, what is it, Glenn Campbell?
Yeah, he probably
Glenn Campbell probably had the biggest one. I think I might have to look this up before I say it, but Aretha Franklin to Madeira.
Well, that's the thing. It's like everyone has recorded this, and and he said that, and this is kind of a cool thing for him as an artist, him as a person. But that song, it just set him up for life, so he could really do whatever the hell he wanted to musically.
And I think that was
kind of cool,
well deserved for him too, because again, for me, the other stuff that he does after that, all the albums after that,
right,
even this one included, but you can tell this is a little 60s, this is a little whatever. Sure, he's trying to play the game. But yeah, once this song pops for him. He released a Steam Powered Airplane, the album I'm just talking about, and all the other music that he's ever released that really pushed progressive bluegrass or progressive folk music into what it is today. And man, thank God for the song almost.
Yeah.
And then
if it weren't for that song, the album might have flopped.
Yeah,
you never know.
Yeah, I mean, there's
never
great songs.
Underestimate people's bad taste.
There's great songs on this album. Yeah, without that, without that particular one, who knows what happened. And then I think that he starts going in a funny direction again. Naked in spite of myself.
Yeah.
My pride is turned to ashes now, right here inside my head. That's a good one, man. From there, the album, it does what it does.
Well, that one had a great groove. Something about it. It was because, and that's, I think, for the sake of the song with Townes and this album too, it's kind of like if you worked in a record store, what section would you put them in?
Especially in that time period.
It's like, where would you put this?
Yeah. I mean, you think about it like this.
Is it country?
Go listen. Pop? Go listen to pop or like modern country music from the 60s, right?
Oh yeah.
That's not it. That's neither one of them match that.
Right.
Go listen to, like, they don't fit the common genres of the time.
Sure, yeah.
And I think that we, or maybe people of this time period, don't get that because there's so many different genres. Everything's kind of fractal at this point. Everything's just,
for sure. Yeah.
I'm influenced by this and this and this, whatever. You know what I mean? But like back then, it was like a handful of genres.
Right.
Jazz, blues, country, rock. It's a couple of stuff. It wasn't all the stuff that we have now.
Right.
So who the hell? That comes back to why there probably aren't very many of these albums in existence. Because one, the record labels are like, I don't know or the record companies, I don't know what the fuck to do with this.
Yeah.
And then the people, the next thing too, my dad, the reason I started this podcast is because of my dad.
Yeah.
My dad used to give me shit. He's like, you don't know what it's like to save your money up, go to the record store, buy an album,
for sure,
and it'd be shit.
Yeah.
It'd be garbage.
Yeah,
so, you have a whole lot of like influence as well from the record company pushing certain records and stuff. So I'm sure this is like one of them got, put it in the back corner over there. And then, if anybody finds
thinking about 1968, like, who in the hell's the target audience?
Yeah, who's
like,
the demographic?
Who would even I can't even wrap my head around.
I mean, what's Dylan doing around that time though?
Oh, dude, he's doing straight like rock and roll.
Yeah, exactly. So like,
maybe Blonde on Blonde.
I'll check it out.
Blonde on Blonde might be around that.
I mean, but
you got to think Dylan went electric in 65,
right?
So I think he was doing
I mean, that's the whole thing, right? It's like who's
but
listening
most people, and you got to think the moneymaker at that time was just like, you know, the Beatles, the Rolling Stones. I mean, it was like those were the big guys.
66 on Blonde on Blonde.
Okay.
But still, it's close enough.
Yeah.
Right, so you're 2 years before these two albums come out. So let's say you got Dylan going electric. Like, where does this fit into the
and you got to
role?
think these two guys listened to Blonde on Blonde.
100%.
You know, and it's like, and then they make these two albums. It's like,
I think that every songwriter of the time period was listening to Dylan.
Sure,
like, if you're not, I don't believe you. To be honest with you, I don't believe you if you tell me you're not listening to Dylan. And I really enjoy both these albums, man. I you know, he's got a couple other tracks on the album that didn't jump off the page to me. But what else? Is there anything else that jumped off the page to you? That's really the question.
Just how unusual it was.
Yeah,
and just that he was able to, like, someone in a suit was like, "Hey, let's record this guy," and that was because I think that, especially back then, more so than now. Like now, I think, you know, there were so many avenues. There are so many independent labels, or so many people in their houses, in their garages, that you can really put out an album if you want. You know what I mean? But like, someone in a suit was like, "This is a sound business decision."
That's crazy, man.
John
because
Hartford.
like,
and you're like, wait, what? Like,
you're taking like, as what's funny to me, man, is like a lot of people claim to be folk musicians, right? But as someone who's playing like a banjo and a fiddle and shit, like. And then you're gonna be like, yeah, he's the dude we need to sign right now. Like,
right.
People wouldn't do that nowadays, man.
No,
there's a lot of people. If he was in that round now, they wouldn't sign him.
Right.
You know, so there's a lot of folks that like however, maybe Gentle on My Mind was just that
Who knows?
good.
Yeah. Who knows how he got there? But that's the one thing that stuck with me is like, how did this get recorded?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, the beauty of it setting him up for the rest of his career was amazing, and it made people want to come back and see that. You know, I think there may have been a precursor to him. It may have been String Bean, the banjo player String Bean, but he was still very traditional. But he did a lot of outlandish things with his clothes and like
he was on what, the Opry?
Yeah, he was doing things with like his
oh yeah,
performance.
He was like 6. He was crazy tall.
And he had his like pants down to his ankles.
Yeah.
But he was a little progressive with his stuff, I would say. But that would be like, to me, like the precursor that I could draw. That's the only thing I could draw beforehand, because everybody else is playing traditional bluegrass.
Right.
So, and granted, like, you do have some newgrass revival stuff come out in the 70s, in the mid 70s. Not what we know as newgrass revival, but you know, the earliest versions of it. But man, still, like, I listened to that, and they're even more traditional than John Hartford is.
Right.
So John Hartford is playing like with electric bass. He's got got acoustic bass on some stuff. He's even got like a bowed bass on one of the songs as well. I heard that. Like, it's so many things going on from song to song to song to song. They kind of it's hard to pick up everything, and I think it's hard to pick up everything on the first time you listen to any album.
Well, the first time I listened to this, I just thought, okay, this is, I mean, it's good, but it's really weird.
Yeah.
And then the more I listened to it, the more it grew on me.
Yeah, and I think that
kept growing on me.
That's
like,
what music does, right?
So
like
good.
You know, music isn't always your cup of tea at first.
And he's
time.
a little bit jester too. He's definitely more lighthearted than Towne.
Yes,
sure.
And I think that you know, some of my favorite songwriters have always been like that. They've tried to be funny, and you also probably have to take into account the time period, like Roger Miller in the 50s.
Sure.
You know, like you got the Chug-a-Lug and Trailers for Sale or Rent, all that stuff where he's like kind of cute, kind of you know, and he does the voices and stuff as well. Like Roger Miller was really into doing like all the animated stuff where on stage and stuff. So to me, there's a lineage there where you hear kind of the same mouth voicings and stuff that Hartford does and the same stuff. Well, man, we've pretty much done our time that we need to do here. Anything else you want to talk about either one of these albums before we get out of here?
That's about it.
I appreciate you coming on, and I will have
Thanks
you
for
on
having me, DJ.
have you on back in the future. So thank you, Sean.
Sure.
All right, dude.